Good afternoon. I'm speaking to you live just outside.
I like to think balding is just God's way of saying, now let's see you get laid.
Is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it?
What I'd really like to do is put the greatness of this man in perspective.
The hairloss community has a lot to be thankful for, having you as a spokesperson.
You mean you just call this guy up?
About life and about reality.
And now, America's #1 reality radio show for men. Live from Los Angeles, it's Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth.
Hey guys, welcome to the broadcast. Joe Tilman, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Good to be back, Spencer.
How are you? It's great to have you back, my man. I got to tell you,
had a good week.
That's nice. Very, very, very nice to hear. I know it was your birthday week, so you took some time off last Friday, which I find questionable, but you know, who am I?
It wasn't just birthday stuff. There was a trip involved.
That's true.
Stuff being done.
That's true. You got a new car
to coincide with that time frame. What was that?
And you got a nice new ride. Mazel tov.
Thank you. It's something I've wanted since high school. So yeah, it was a good birthday. It was a good birthday.
Good for you.
How are things with you?
Meanwhile, I mean, last week's show was I think it was like the busiest show ever had. I'm just kidding. It was actually a little lonely without you. It was a little lonely without you, Joe.
Well, I appreciate it, but you had good company with our boy Morty. I tuned in at one point and I heard how things were going. It was an interesting show, to say the least.
Let me tell you something. Morty the Yenta is ready to rock you. This guy is on it. He is a natural. He's a fucking pro.
I know he calls you every week. Is Joe going to be on? Is Joe going to be on? Is Joe going to be on?
No, he actually has already created a meme that he sends me through Signal. And it's you with a noose around your neck. It's actually pretty creative.
It was, yeah. No, he did a fine job, and it was nice to see him fill in as he did. So it was good.
Well, I'm going to try not to make a habit out of that one. Just kidding, Morty. Call in. Guys, phone number is 888-659-3727. This is the Hair Loss Show. You know, if you're new to the broadcast and you don't know who I am, I've been doing this for a long time, very long time. It's interesting because there is a woman, a lovely woman by the name of Karen, who started a site many years ago called Hair Boutique. I think it's hairboutique.com, and if I'm wrong about that, it's just because I'm old, but I'll look it up. But she has been coming into the chat, which I didn't even realize initially. And, you know, she has just kind of reminded me, just by reaching out again, how fucking long I have been in this game.
Thank you.
No, but really, when I think, I remember the initial phone call. I mean, we're talking about when the internet was really in its infancy, and she developed this really strong presence online. It was like a hair growth and long hair website, I think. And Karen, forgive me if I'm forgetting, but it was just really full of information and had a good following. And she wanted to write a review about the book that had just been published. And I don't even know if I was on the radio yet. And first of all, time really flies. It's unbelievable.
Yes.
And frankly, it's amazing how good I look. Is this thing on, Joe? No, but it's yeah. But it is interesting to kind of think about everything that's transpired over the years and how this industry has evolved. And she got me thinking about, you know, where the industry was when I wrote that first book. And the industry was in the shitter. Honestly, it was horrible. But after 25 years, how the fuck did it get even worse, Joe? That's kind of a rhetorical question.
Opportunity.
Well,
Opportunity made it get worse.
Something else reminded me of how it got worse. And, you know, when we were talking about, you know, how FUE started and just kind of like the true history and the evolution of FUE, I was really I sat down, I was thinking about, Jesus, you know, I mean, no one really understands like the original or the first FUE fucking gold rush that occurred between the years 2001 and let's say 2004. It was like the fucking gold rush in this industry. There were a handful of people who wanted to take a fucking chokehold with this new procedure that they didn't know how the fuck to perform, and they put it out online, and the level of carnage and follicular holocaust that occurred during those years is, well, I thought it can never be surpassed. But now we are essentially in the second major FUE gold rush that started about 4 years ago, 5 years ago. Like really exploded. But people forget about that first one. And you know exactly what I'm talking about, Joseph W. Tillman.
I do know exactly what you're talking about. The first gold rush in FUE was everyone rushing to say that they were a pioneer, everyone rushing to say that they invented something new that makes everyone else's FUE dog shit.
They were
it
was the Woods technique, and then it was FUE renaming it their own technique, trying to take a fucking chokehold and credit and this and that.
Yeah.
How come no one talks about the fact that, you know, that's really, the FUE gold rush is really what started this whole technician issue that everyone's worried about, that the old guard is so fucking worried about. It's the original FUE gold rush. Those guys who came out with the fucking pans and the picks to get that fucking gold, who trained technicians to perform surgery. No one talks about that. Now, I'm not saying that was such a terrible idea, especially since, you know, no one really understood the reality of how or what kind of damage could be caused by, I guess they understood the reality of transection, but I don't think they understood how the industry would devolve by essentially letting people in on this game, so to speak, who are not trained physicians, who don't have medical degrees, giving them the opportunity to perform surgery and essentially letting them loose in the world, because what do you think is going to happen? These people don't stay with the same physicians. They end up banding together, starting their own groups, working independently. That's how it all started. So it makes me laugh now when I hear either the ISHRS or the Fight the Fight campaign or all this bullshit, when I see some of these guys who are so-called pioneers in FUE, who are on the boards and all this shit, that are fighting the fight, when they caused the problem to fucking begin with.
They're quick to take the accolades that don't even apply to them, but you'll never see them own up to their own shortcomings at the beginning.
It's amazing. It's
fucking... A single one would say, I wish I hadn't done it this way. I'm sorry.
Something, you know, and sometimes they kind of allude to that, but the truth is, it was a fucking mess. And I am still in contact with patients who used to be on the old hair loss help forums where everything really evolved. And where a lot of physicians took hold, like the Canadian doctor and other doctors, saw like, wait a second, this shit is real. I got to get this fucking pick, and I got to go there, and I got to get this gold. I want to pan for this shit. There's a short period of time where I can call myself a leader. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Where in my naive mind, and I was a fucking idiot. I'm just going to tell you guys, I am so sorry. I truly believe that, you know, okay, we're getting to a really interesting logical endpoint for state-of-the-art hair transplant surgery. The majority of doctors have converted their practices, their infrastructures over to having the ability to perform state-of-the-art FUT procedures using stereoscopic dissection And, you know, they had the right teams and a strong staff and support staff.
Mm-hmm.
They understood about placement and angles, and all this stuff was finally being put out there because the financial pressure was created for these doctors to finally make this happen. I mean, God knows no one wanted to listen to Bobby Limmer back in 1988 when he said, this is probably the way it should be done.
Yeah. Everyone said, nope.
And then God knows, you know, and I'll give Bill Rassman credit. He really fucking pushed the envelope and said that this is, and Bob Bernstein, when Bob started to work with Bill. And I met these guys and I was like, you know, my initial chapter for The Bald Truth was going to be what I thought was just going to be an expose on hair transplant surgery. And then I found these guys. I'm like, wait a second, this could look pretty good. So I wrote about this. But at the time, there were only 11 doctors performing it. So thank God we came out and kind of forced the industry's hand to evolve to the point where almost everyone who is worth their salt was doing pure follicular unit transplantation. Right? I'm about to possibly lose my point. But there was a time when things were good. People were getting very good results, consistent results. And I thought naively that, okay, this is a great adjunct procedure, or a procedure that can be used for people who they're stripped out. Maybe they need small procedures, and there's a possibility they won't progress too much, or they're shit scared about having a strip scar. I thought that maybe doctors would offer it in their practice, and instead of experimenting on paying fucking patients, they would say, hey, look, while you're in for a strip, we'd like to try to move maybe 25 grafts using this new method. Would you sign off on this? Or 100 grafts, or 200 grafts. It's not what happened. Maybe in some practices. No. What happened was they saw this Canadian doctor kicking ass on hair loss help. The Greeks got involved. God bless them. And all of a sudden, it became a market. And there was a demand. And people were rushing to the fucking playing field to try to get a fucking grip on this, a chokehold to become a pioneer on paying patients. Yeah. And when I saw this shit happening, I mean, it didn't matter who I spoke to. It didn't matter what I said. It didn't matter that I thought that, look, the results that I'm seeing are inferior. You can't do this. At least Woods was doing small cases. Him and his sister, Angela Campbell, sitting there, making people sit in the chair for 20 hours for 500 grafts, but at least they were doing no harm. God, if you guys only knew the truth. I'm telling it to you, but you got to believe it. Yeah. It was a fucking mess out there. And bravo to those who took hold of this technology, this technique, and really tried to refine it. That's great. But you see what's happening today. It's simply because you chose to turn it into a different form of the commodity that you guys are already fucking selling. And now we're looking at it all over again, except there's thousands of more walking wounded. And now we got kids who are going in and getting 5,000 grafts at a time in fucking Turkey or India or wherever else, even here. And maybe they have five years on their punch clock left before they lose their fucking minds, before their lives fall apart, because they're not going to know how to handle it once the reality of what they went under and what was done to them is revealed. That's all I got to say about that, Joe.
That's a mouthful. That was a good opening.
I appreciate that. I get a little riled up.
I know.
I get riled up at all the bullshit. The fucking bullshit that goes on in this field. The lies, the misrepresentation, the fact that the history of FUE is not only quasi-inaccurate in some textbooks, but in other textbooks, it's essentially a work of fucking fiction.
Oh, absolutely. People writing books about FUE and the history of it when they were barely even doing strip at the time. They were so far removed from the beginnings of FUE, had nothing to do with the history of it, and their writing, they weren't even around.
And then there are guys who were around.
They're writing this down based on hearsay and comments from their colleagues that were around but had nothing to do with it either. It's really.
But it's even beyond the credit aspect of it. It's about, and that's fucked up as it is, because people deserve the credit that they deserve. There should be, if someone was involved, if someone created the first, I don't know, marketable or produced the first punch that was specifically for FUE on the market, they should get credit for that. It shouldn't be an issue if I talk about the truth on the show, about what really happened. No one should take issue with that. Even if the device didn't sell well or it wasn't the best device in the world, or I'm not saying that it was or it wasn't, it was still there at the beginning, making contributions. They should get credit. That's all I have to say about that. Phone number is 888-659-3727. Now, I'll tell you why this is important for you guys who are listening. A lot of you guys make decisions based on who you think are pioneers or who you think, you read the history of these things. And let me tell you, there are people out there I've known have rewritten different iterations of the history of FUE multiple times. They have different iterations on their own fucking websites. It's a great thing about Wayback Machine, by the way.
It really is. I love Wayback Machine.
Guys, we're here to take your calls. Sorry I got a little riled up, but, honestly, we are doing the best that we can to provide you guys with the truth about the entire hair loss industry. Sadly, the most dangerous part is obviously the surgical end of things. But I just did a live with a very nice guy who is an SMP guy. And I agreed to do it because I told him I'm just going to tell the truth about my feelings and, my experiences with, and helping those who have had bad SMP and stuff like that. And he's very open to it. He's a very nice dude. But in every aspect of this industry, there's bad players and there's good players. Joe knows who they are.
Yes.
So do I. So the takeaway here is be careful. The majority of people out there that are actually providing a product or a service are bullshitting you. That's it. There's a group of people who aren't. Some really good people, caring physicians, people who are making really good devices that are helping patients and products. Few and far between, though. 888-659-3727. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Jonathan from Wisconsin.
Jonathan, man, how are you?
Jonathan?
Good. I called a few months ago, and I have another question.
Sure. What's up?
Okay, so this is going to take some background, so I called a few months ago because I'm a guy who shaves his head.
Okay.
And I was getting what looked like to be some type of inflammation on the back of my head. You recommended I go to a dermatologist. I did that. And they diagnosed it as something called folliculitis, which is a fancy term for inflammation on the skin where your hair follicles are.
Mm-hmm.
It's a thing that won't clear up naturally, like a teenager with acne or something like that.
Right.
So we tried some medications. Nothing really stuck. And this week I went for an appointment where we kind of talked about a medication of last resort. This medication is designed for people who get like normal acne.
Accutane?
And yeah, it's that one.
Okay.
And So some important things to note. It has legitimately serious side effects. If I take it, I'm literally supposed to watch out for serious liver damage and all this stuff. And as it relates to folliculitis, it either may not work, or if it does, it'll only temporarily work. The doctor, in fact, told me it's first of all a drug that you have to take for a 6-month regimen. And this doctor told me that there was a patient that she had that with folliculitis that had been on 4 rounds of the drug in 6 years. So I walked away from that appointment, not really feeling good about that option. And
I actually think, just to cut you off, I think that's actually a smart choice on your part. And I think that whoever the dermatologist is, listen, he's going through the normal protocol to try to help you, but folliculitis can be helped without the use of medications like that. Every body's body is different. Everyone's physiology is different. And there's a lot of diseases and a lot of dermatological issues and inflammatory issues that can really be helped without conventional medicine or the medicine that they think that they're used to prescribing.
Okay. So when I left not feeling good about that option, I kind of started thinking and considering an option of growing my hair back out and getting on finasteride.
Okay.
Does that seem like a smart option to you guys?
Well, it depends. How bad is your folliculitis, and where exactly is it? Is it over the entire scalp? Is it in a specific area of the scalp?
It mostly appears on the back of my scalp, so basically where I wouldn't lose hair.
Okay. So,
and I guess I would assume that if I one day go completely bald, if it was on the top of my head, the folliculitis would cease there because there wouldn't be any more hair follicles.
Well, here's the thing.
It's on the back where I always grow hair.
Right. Now, how often do you shave your head?
Usually I would do it every other day, but I've been starting to do it like once a week. And, if I go with this plan, I would just stop shaving altogether.
Right. Now, have you attempted to just live with like a number 1 or number 2 and use a guard on your scalp as opposed to shaving the back of the head there? Yeah.
Well, the thing is, that stuff is always going to be there. And I have lived with guards before, and I didn't mind it. So it's not like the shaving itself causes the inflammation. It just makes it worse. Right. But that'll always be there.
Now, you say that'll always be there because the physician said it'll always be there, because that's been your experience so far, or both?
That's been my experience. I remember distinctly, even before the years where I'd start buzzing my hair with a guard or shaving my head, I could literally feel it on the back of my head. So, obviously growing out even to like a 2 guard would conceal it. Yeah.
And how does it feel?
It can hurt if it's like big enough inflammation, but it really will fix itself within a week. It's more of the aesthetic that I'm worried about,
Sure. Now, have you tried like the usual stuff, like the typical stuff that you would think of just naturally, like warm compresses after you shave, or even in between shaves?
Yeah, I've tried all kinds of stuff.
Okay. And have you done anything to, and again, this is going to sound like hocus pocus, but have you done anything to change your diet?
I cut out dairy for quite a while.
What about sugar?
I didn't really see much of a difference.
What about sugar?
Sugar, I didn't really do anything different, but I don't usually have a lot of stuff with added sugars anyway.
So, processed foods, cereals, bread, buns, shit like that, you don't eat any of that?
Not too much.
Okay. So, what would you say your sugar intake is? And where do you get your sugar from? Would you say you get your sugar naturally from fruits, or do you get any sugar from processed food?
I would say mostly fruit. I try and live a clean lifestyle.
Okay. Joe, I'm going to hand this over to you for a little bit.
Well, you've gone down pretty much everything I was going to ask, and there's one thing I think that you should try. You cut out dairy, and that's great. I have to assume that you didn't see any difference with that?
Not really.
Okay. Do yourself a favor. You will benefit from this regardless of what it does for your scalp. But try this.
Okay.
Take on the attitude that anytime you go to the store to buy groceries or to pick something up, read your food labels. You might be surprised at how often you'll see high fructose corn syrup or sugar or fructose or something like that high up in the list of ingredients and things that you didn't even think would have sugar, much less a lot of sugar. And avoid sugar like it's poison, literally.
Got it.
And try that for a month. And what that means is you have to start doing research about the different kinds of food that do have processed sugars, added sugars that you may not understand would have such things. But also, you need to cut out fruit because there's a lot of sugar in fruit naturally. And it's not just processed sugars, it's just sugar in general. Okay, try to cut all of it out as much as you can.
Got it.
Try to eat clean by avoiding carbs if you can. And slowly, after about a month, introduce carbs back into your regular routine and monitor how that affects you. Monitor how it affects you when you start taking in sugar again, because something is feeding this folliculitis, which is simply bacteria down at the follicular level, inflaming the follicles. So something's feeding it, and the medication recommendation, I agree with Spencer. That was a great idea to walk away from that because that it can be very effective for people, but it doesn't work all the time. It doesn't work for everyone, and it can and does cause issues for a lot of people. So I'm glad that you walked away from that. That would be an absolute last resort. I was hoping a dermatologist would give you some ideas other than the nuclear option, which is what I consider that. But I think it's in your best interest to eliminate everything that you can, because up until now, everything that you've been looking at is treating the problem or treating the symptoms, not the problem. And something's feeding this. So if you find out what's feeding it, then you're treating the problem, not the symptoms. And hopefully, if you can narrow down what it is, like maybe it's some sort of reaction because you got celiac. Who knows? And you
My
need
mother
to go
has
gluten-free.
celiac.
Well,
there you go.
And here's the thing. I think Joe gave some good advice. You really have to do it like a real elimination diet, and that probably means that you're going to have to just break it down to just a few foods for a while. Usually, a meat source. The least allergic meat out there is probably organic lamb. But if you do well with beef, whatever it is, some sort of what kind of diet do you normally eat? Are you more plant-based or are you more animal-based?
I would say more animal-based. You're kind of recommending a carnivore diet?
Well, yeah, kind of a carnivore diet, but like a real elimination diet, so it's not just like eating all meats across the board. It's not just eating for, to be keto. It's really just sticking to a few different food sources. So cut it down to, maybe you'll eat beef, chicken, and lamb, those are your meat sources. And then really try to cut out your carbs, if you can, completely for a while. But if you have any carb, just make sure that, try not to have more than, let's say, 50 carbs a day. You can get them from, I probably wouldn't get them from sugar right now, from a fruit source, maybe from some, just a low glycemic index vegetable source, but very low, and just stick to like one or two options. Do that for 2 weeks or a week even and see what happens. And then eventually you start adding food back into your diet and see what can possibly trigger it. You might be surprised to see that it clears up or improves greatly just by eliminating a lot of foods that you eat on a daily basis. Even if it's not necessarily sugar related or You know, I mean, it could be anything. I mean, it could be seed oils.
Yeah.
You know, which is in everything. Sunflower oil. I mean, people get fucked up over seed oils.
Yeah. So, I'll look into this diet stuff and definitely try it. But, I mean, what did you think of the alternative plan I came up with of just growing my hair out and getting on finasteride? Does that seem like it could be a smart thing to do at the same time as this diet stuff?
It's up to you. I mean, if you want to try it to see how you do on the medication, that's fine. If you want to grow your hair out and you use medication, again, we're not doctors, but that's a choice for you. But as far as curing your folliculitis, it may cover it. It may improve it by just, leaving your head alone and not shaving your head. It's possible that if you're letting the hair cycle, but the hair's cycling anyway, you're just not seeing it. It's possible it could benefit you. It's possible that whatever the hormonal changes are, and again, this is just off the cuff, could, when you're taking finasteride, could benefit you or make things worse. It's unlikely that it'll make things worse. But I think...
Unlikely, did you say?
It's unlikely, yeah. But
Okay.
I think, and again, I'm not a doctor, but it's just my opinion, but I do think that concentrating on your diet and trying an elimination diet is probably going to be your best bet as far as trying to solve this piece of the puzzle.
All right.
And you could do both at the same time if you want, but to me, if you've lived with a shaved head for such a long time and you're comfortable that way, why put medication in your body if you don't need it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I just got off of doing a bunch of medications with a dermatologist, so
yeah,
I'm ready to go.
Well, listen, it's up to you. I don't know how much hair you'll grow back. I don't know how much hair loss you actually have. If it helps you strengthen your native hair to the point where when you grow it out, you feel comfortable in your own skin and the medication has no side effects for you, then that's an option. But I think
I can kind of
go ahead.
I can kind of try and describe where I'm at, and you guys can see if that seems like a good idea in terms of hair loss. Well, it's hard to tell, obviously, since I've been shaving it for so long, but my temples have started receding, and my crown is all thin. Keep in mind, I'm looking at this shave, so I can't tell if there's a bald spot. It's actually, there's nowhere that's like completely bald. It's just the entire crown is thinner, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So temple recession and thin crown at a shave level.
So here's the thing, I mean, you're still, it does seem like you're relatively early in the process, the hair loss process. You may benefit from using finasteride if you want to grow your hair out and give it a shot. Talk to your doctor about getting on it, but you still you still really have to concentrate on your diet, man. I think
I'm definitely going to do
do
both, at least the diet on its own, or both.
Yeah. Well, listen, I wish you the best of luck. I'm glad you made the decision not to get an Accutane. It is, in my view, it is like, that is the nuclear option for acne. I mean, when I hear stories of young people being put on this drug, when a dermatologist or a good nutritionist would say, let's see if we can work on your diet, as opposed to fucking putting this drug into your body that can cause liver damage. I mean, the level of hair loss, people that contact us that where Accutane triggered, not only just put them through a telogen effluvium, but triggered early onset androgenetic alopecia, it's staggering. I mean, I've been hearing this for 25 years.
Yeah, and like the biggest red flag when I was in that appointment was the doctor told me I'm looking out for serious liver damage side of symptoms, like, yellow skin. I'm not looking out for mild stuff. So I'm thinking if I have to look out for this, who's to say if I'm getting mild damage and going to F up my health for the rest of my life,
Let me tell you something. You have a choice, in my view, of getting on Accutane or getting on finasteride. Speak to any reasonable physician. They're going to say, they'll take a look, or even speak to a physician who may be new to the game and has to look it up in the PDR and be like, here's a list of 7 possible side effects compared to a list of some of the most dangerous side effects known to man with, I think Accutane, correct me if I'm wrong, people, maybe Joe knows this, I think it has a black box warning.
Yeah, it's a highly, highly regulated drug.
Yeah.
It's incredible. So what kind of doctor would I go to if I want to look into finasteride?
Well, you'd probably want to go to a hair loss specialist. Usually they also perform hair transplant surgery. You can just go to iahrs.org. You can learn about, who's closest to you. When you call the physician up, you let them know that you have no interest in a hair transplant consultation. You want to have a medical consultation. You're considering getting on finasteride.
Okay.
And if they hang up on you, you call the next one. I'm just kidding.
And you guys are like brand tours or something you're like against the generic, right?
No. We're not against the generic. Just that I'm sorry that I cut you off, Joe. The generic,
it's all right.
You just don't know what generic you're getting.
Mm-hmm.
If I happened to start on generic and I was able to stay on that same generic and I was doing well with it for a lifetime, then I'd be fine with it. But the problem with generic drugs in general is, your pharmacy, whatever pharmacy you're using, is going to get the best generic deal that they can, and the generics will change. So it could start off with a pharmacy in Israel and then go to a pharmacy that's making the generic out of India. Or you can end up getting generics out of China. You don't know what the fuck is in there.
Okay. If you had to pick between the two brands for someone in my situation, what would you go with?
There's only one brand. I mean, I
thought it was ProScar and Propecia.
Well, ProScar they're two different medications.
It's not a brand difference. It's just an application difference.
Yeah. So ProScar is 5 milligrams of finasteride branded. And Propecia is the 1 milligram dose branded. So that is up to you. I mean, if you can find a physician who is willing to prescribe branded ProScar and you can cut that up, then that's a good option. But either option is fine. There is some thought there's a school of thought that cutting up the product could possibly degrade the medication. I know
like cutting up a piece of wood, you lose 1/8 of an inch from the blade.
Yeah, but besides that, just the oxidation alone, just once the coating is taken off. So there is some school of thought to that, but I've known people who have been doing that for decades and they've had good results. So that's something that you have to talk about with your doctor.
That's what I've been doing for 20 years.
Yeah.
I will definitely do the diet, and I will consider whether or not I want to get on a medication and grow my hair out. But that was very useful. I am definitely glad I called you guys.
Well, I'm glad you called too. Good luck. You made a good decision for yourself, man, and let us know how you do.
Yeah, I'll call back in a few months and let you know how either option worked out.
Yeah, you may actually, if you go on a strict elimination diet for 2 weeks, you may see a difference immediately. That's how fast it can work.
And your kind of school of thought was that it could possibly be just like cleanse my diet and then maybe get back to somewhat normal diets, or stick with the elimination depending on how I respond.
Well, the way the elimination diets normally work is you eliminate a lot of things. You stick to 2 or 3 foods that will sustain you, and then you, after a week or two, you add back, depending on how long you do the elimination. If you see some results, then you start to slowly add foods back into your diet that you normally eat, but only one at a time. So say, whatever. Say you're dealing with some sort of allergies, or you're allergic to citrus fruit. So you add oranges back.
I get it. You're trying to figure out what's the problem.
Right. So if you add back an orange and all of a sudden you're like, holy shit, my head is on fire, then you know it's the orange.
All right. That's 100% clear. I'll get off so someone else can call, but thank you so much.
All right, brother. Good luck.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye-bye. 888-659-3727. Looks like there's some diet discussion going on in the chat room. High carb, low meat.
What I would do in a situation like this, I would cut everything out. I would live on a diet of boiled chicken and broccoli for a month.
Yeah, I did an elimination diet many years ago. The doctor suggested that I do it. I mean, the first suggestion should have been stop drinking because I was wondering why my face is bloating. But anyway, the diet worked too. But he put me on lamb, carrots, zucchini, salt. And that was it. As much as I want. And everything, and the vegetables had to be steamed. And I have to tell you, I looked fucking fantastic. It's unbelievable. The bloat just went away.
Yeah, it's amazing how that works.
And I realized I said I was adding stuff back into my diet, and as soon as I had a couple of drinks, that's when I became inflamed. So note to self, drinking's bad. Not that I discontinued it completely.
I can accept the inflammation.
I accepted it for a very long time in my life.
I'm still accepting it.
Well, I have not been accepting it lately, but I mean, you can go back for years. There are times like Spence's drinking. You see that shit written all over my face, man. It's just like
see on the camera.
Big fucking bloated. You know, you could actually see when you look at like even when you look at like Rogan. I don't know. Most people you probably listen to him, but if you watch him, you're like, that guy had a night out.
Yeah, you can tell.
It's
when he and Alex Jones look similar, you know he's been out.
Phone number 888-659-3727. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Adam from Wisconsin.
Hey, man. Jesus,
Hello, Adam.
What's going on with Wisconsin? A lot of Norwords,
I don't know what's going on. It's probably the weather. It's starting to get cold, and we're all just inside now.
Inside watching the depressing hair loss show. What's happening, man?
I'm good. How are you guys?
All right. Hanging in there.
Can't complain.
Yeah, I'm calling, I guess for a few things, but my main concern was just about average, I guess, your daily hair shedding. It seems like everybody has a different amount of shedding that they get normally every day.
Mm-hmm.
Just being outside, just being in the shower. I guess and I'm looking online and that says 100 hairs a day is the normal shedding of everybody. You know, if you have that, then you're fine. But I look at myself and I look at when I take it, I'm in the shower, and it's a lot more than that, that's for sure. Throughout the day also, it's noticeable.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get you guys' input on like what is the normal amount, and I'm asking because I'm on medication, and it's so hard to judge if it's working properly.
Sure. Well,
regardless if I take pictures.
I'll tell you this. Well, first of all, let me ask you a couple of questions. Well, let me say this first. When it comes to reading about the normal amount of hair loss that someone should go through every day, the mantra has been 50 to 100 hairs. I can tell you with confidence that there's never been any study showing the normal amount of hair loss. It was all guesswork, and it was just written in stone. So we really don't know what a normal amount of shedding is for the average person. I would say it could range anywhere between 50 and in some cases 200 or 300 hairs, depending on the person and depending on the time of year and depending on that particular time within their growth cycle. It really depends. Now, even with that much hair, you're not going to see a lot of it. Most of that will come out in the shower, in the wind. In my case, it's not the wind because my hair is so sprayed that the wind, nothing's going to fly off like normal. But
bulletproof.
It's fucking bulletproof. But yeah, so it really is hard to tell. So when you read or when a dermatologist tells you it's normal to lose 100 hairs, it could be normal for you to lose 200 hairs. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So if you see, the key is if you are seeing a change, if you're seeing a progression of your hair loss, if you're seeing that it's less difficult to style, or there's areas of the scalp that are thinner, noticeably thinner, or maybe there's some sort of just a noticeable overall change in density, whether it's good, positive, or negative, That's how you know if the medication is working or not, or if you're losing ground. Now, what are you seeing? You say it's so hard, even with pictures. When you comb your hair, forget about the shedding, and you style your hair, what is it like now compared to when you started medication? Is it easier? Does it look better?
So I've noticed this going on for the last 3 years. Started with finasteride for the first year, and it definitely from day one to the first year, it definitely got worse. I was also on minoxidil. When I started dutasteride, I was kind of working my way up, so it would be like once a week, and now I'm on it every day. Avodart. And when I look at the pictures from, I guess, when I first started Avodart or dutasteride, because it was on generic, when I look at the pictures from the first day I started dutasteride to today, how I look today, it doesn't look like much of a big difference compared to the start of my journey to the last day I really used
the first year when you're on finasteride.
Yes. So I would say, hopefully, knock on wood, maybe I slowed it down a lot, but it's just that I have diffused thinning. My sides are pretty burnt up, and I have coarse strands, so like I could cover up, pretty well. My crown mostly is the main concern is thinned out, kind of like the last caller. We have a bit in common. It's not like a.
I'm telling you, yo, it's like Norwood Central in Wisconsin.
Man. Norwood Central.
It's the weather. It's the weather. I don't know what it is.
You guys got to get some more sunshine, vitamin D.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look. Here's what I always tell people. You know your hair, and you know where you were 3 years ago compared to where you are now. If you think you're basically in the same boat, then there's a good chance that medication is benefiting you. And that's the key. When I started, now I saw my experience was different because I saw a cessation of shedding that then turned into a major shed about 6 or 7 months into medication. No one was talking about the dread shed or, when I took this stuff originally, I had no one to speak to about it. There was nothing written about it online. Frankly, I wasn't even online at that point. So I didn't really know what was going down. But if you see even the slightest improvement, or if you think you're in the same position, to me, that's an indication that the medication is working.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say it's from the first day I noticed it 3 years ago to today is the same. It's definitely not. But yeah.
How old are you again?
23.
Okay. I would say that
24,
usually
24,
it's someone of your
sorry.
age. Well, 24 is still very young. Someone your age who had noticed their hair loss 3 or 4 years ago would normally progress pretty rapidly. In general, everyone's different. So, being that you really haven't progressed that quickly, it does seem like at the very least you've slowed down the progression. And it's also possible that in time, as your body gets more used to the drug, and your hair cycle starts to kind of level off, you may end up noticing. Geez, I can't speak today. That you see a cessation of shedding, that you have less shedding in time. How do you feel on the medication? Are you having any adverse side effects, or you just feel normal?
I feel completely normal.
That's great.
Yeah, it's shoot, dude. Sometimes I wish I would just bounce up to 2.5 milligrams of dutasteride.
Well, you don't have obviously talk to your doctor about whatever you do. You don't have to push the envelope. But here's the thing: all of those options are there. The fact that you are doing well on the medication, as far as you're not having any adverse side effects that you're aware of, you feel confident taking the medication. It does seem like you're slowing things down. It's possible that you could add to your regimen. It's possible that, maybe you could speak to your doctor about down the line. I would still wait. considering using a small dose of oral minoxidil to kind of kick things in. But the problem with that is that can kick you into a shed as well. Anytime you add anything or bump up your medication, you can end up going through a shed. So you have to be in a position where you can tolerate that shed if that happens.
Yeah, I actually, that's funny you mentioned it because that was going to be like one of my next little question. I called a month ago, maybe a little bit more, and we were discussing oral minoxidil, and I got my prescription, and I took 1.25 milligrams my first day. Fucking little bit of a heart beating, kind of just irregular heart beating going on, and then I lowered that to half of that, 0.625 or whatever, 0.62, and I don't have any problems anymore, but I was thinking about going back on it, but just on that half dose.
Well, that's something you need to talk to your physician about. Absolutely.
Oh, we discussed it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
we discussed it. I told him, like, hey, if I start feeling side effects, do you recommend I go lower? He said, yeah, go lower. But I guess I didn't mention that I wanted to wait, see everything is okay. I actually went and seen a doctor when I had the problem, and they said they found no issues in me. They did, like, a full scan of me, everything.
Yeah.
Nothing was going on. I seemed normal. So I guess it was just
No,
small.
did you have any, were you thinking about it at all? Do you think you had any anxiety when you were taking the medication because you were thinking about the side effects?
That could be a possibility. It wasn't like a nocebo effect, I would say. I was definitely feeling it. I've never had like an anxiety attack, like, you know.
Because when I'm waiting for Joe to get on the air, sometimes I have that. So I was late today. I'll take the hit.
Take the hit.
All right, brother. Listen, we're gonna take some more calls, but I do think that it's not a terrible idea to talk to your doctor if you feel like maybe minoxidil can help you. But you're also in a position where you think that at the very least things have slowed down a lot. You know, and it's very possible that dutasteride will do the trick in time. Sometimes you just have to wait.
Yeah.
I know that's hard, man.
Yeah, it definitely is because, you know, you lose so much in you know, hair, and then you're just like, well, if I'm losing all this, then maybe I'm stopped my hair loss, and maybe I'm growing what I'm losing, and it's just, that's it. Like, I just halted it. You know, there's no regrowth.
Let's put it this way. For guys like us, and I'm in the same mental boat as you, it's a living hell, you know, that we have to just figure out how to navigate and deal with. There are guys who can just shave their heads and move on. I was not one of those guys at your age. I'm still not one of those guys. And I'm 3 times your age almost. So, you know, you just have to kind of come to terms with it. Like, all right, this is the fucking cards I've been dealt, and I'm doing everything in my power to somehow take control of this situation. And, you know, just be patient. Keep an eye on things. Make sure that, you know, if you're not really progressing, or if it's super, super slow, or you're not sure, you know, honestly, if you're not sure, that you're probably not progressing. You really do. You know, I mean, we're also hyper vigilant when it comes to our hair. That if you're really not sure, there's a strong possibility that you're kind of like stabilized.
That's awesome to hear. Yeah, I'm really.
All right.
I think you guys are right. Yeah, and I'm also gonna take up that diet thing. Maybe that'll help too. Whatever.
Well, it'll definitely help your life. You know, if you're fucked up in any other way.
Yeah.
So, all right, brother. Keep us posted.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Keep doing what you're doing. You guys are helping a lot of people. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, man. Take care.
Thanks for calling.
Bye.
Guys, that doesn't mean you hang up when I'm ready to get off of the fucking phone. This is a call-in show. Everyone just hung up. All right, well, you know what that means.
The lines.
Yeah, we have 888. We have phone lines open, so 888-659-3727. Again, it's a call-in show. If I don't see phone calls, if I don't see lights lit, I take the night off.
Going fishing.
Going fishing.
Or drinking.
You know, it's funny. I have not been drinking. Not saying that I won't drink again. This is not the, Spencer sober show. But I just haven't been, and I've been training consistently, and just, I have to say, it feels pretty good.
Yeah.
It feels.
I was clean for about 3 weeks up until a few days ago, and I lost a few pounds, feeling better when I wake up in the morning, and then not.
Well, here's what I noticed. First of all,
and then my birthday hit.
Yeah. Well, first of all, drinking's fucking fun. That's it.
Exactly.
I'm not gonna lie. It's fun. I enjoy the
newsflash.
I enjoy the funness of drinking. I know that's not a word, people, so give me a break. But I also noticed that you really can only go so far to a certain age with the booze.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not like back in the day. It's not like when a couple of guys from around the world come hang out at your house for a night to be on a documentary.
Yeah, well, and it's funny, the sad thing is that was back in the day, and I was already like 45 or some shit.
That long ago? My God.
Yeah, I think you guys came to my house in 2012.
It was 10 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I wanted to say something about that last caller.
Yeah.
And that idea about the 100 hairs per day myth or wives' tale or whatever you want to call it. When guys are losing or seeing a lot of hairs in the sink or in the tub or in their hands or whatever, and they start looking at this number that they inadvertently will always find when they do their research, asking about this very issue. The number of hairs that are falling out is relative to how much hair you have on your head to begin with. And I say that because there are some people that have super high density hair front to back, and whatever they're losing without actually experiencing male pattern hair loss, just the normal shedding cycle, can look dramatically worse in their hands or in the sink than someone that's got much lower density that's also not suffering from hair loss, just going through, the normal shedding phase where hairs are going into catagen and telogen before they come back into anagen. So one person's 100 hairs a day is another person's 300 hairs a day.
Mr. Orlandis is saying that Joe is literally stealing the words out of my mouth.
Joe's literally stealing my idea. What idea?
Apparently, he was writing about it in the chat room, saying that the more hair you have, the worse it
I
is.
see that. Okay.
Or whatever he said. He said exactly what you said, and I can't repeat it because I'm fucking old.
I was thinking it before you typed it, but I've also been thinking this for a long time anyway. So, but we'll give it to you. But no, that's
a very good point, Mr. Orlandis. Thank you for that.
Yes, thank you for your contribution. It's relative to how much hair you have to begin with, and so I don't recall the last caller saying how much hair loss he's experienced, like where he would be placing himself on the Norwood scale. But he did say that the crown looks thinner. It was a previous caller talking about temples, but I think it's important to remember for when people are looking at how much hair they're losing in their hands, in the sink, in the tub, or whatever, that it doesn't necessarily mean that you're suffering from male pattern hair loss unless you can actually see male pattern hair loss. Keyword being a pattern in photos, in the mirror, or whatever. So just keep that in mind, guys. Don't freak out just because you see some hair in your hands.
The numbers that you read in the textbooks or online or from the American Academy of Dermatology, they are arbitrary. Trust me, I know these things. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
This is Ryan, and I'm from Florida.
Ryan, what's happening, man?
Hello, Ryan.
Not much. I just wanted to chime in real quick. One thing is I was using the Nizoral shampoo from the store, the 1%, not the prescription 2%.
Nizoral.
And I was noticing my hair actually and getting thicker, and it wasn't just a texture thing, because there would be days where I didn't wash my hair, and the texture from shampoo, like a thickening shampoo, if you will, obviously has an illusion of volume, but I noticed my hair was actually doing a lot better on it. And I went on a trip and had to throw it out in the airport, had to throw it away because I couldn't take it on the plane. And I was on a trip for 2 weeks, and I noticed my hair was getting thinner, and it was not my imagination. And I got back and got right back on the Nizoral, and I didn't see like a recovery. And I don't know, there's no way to prove if that's related or not to that, but I just wanted to hear your thoughts about that.
Well, my thoughts are it would be unusual for a shampoo that has a medication that can actually, it's been shown to lower DHT in the scalp, to have that drastic of an effect in such a short period of time on your shedding. I guess it's possible, but it's pretty, I don't really think that it is. I'm not a doctor, but there's a process involved. It takes about, 14 days or so for your DHT levels to get back to baseline, even using topicals. So, and then even if your DHT is back to baseline after 14 days, it could take another, couple of weeks or a month or so before you actually notice any type of a shed, and it would probably take longer. So I would say it was probably coincidental.
Okay, no problem. And I am on generic for finasteride. I know you always preach the name brand just for consistency reasons, but I've been on that for about 7 years, and I was thinking about making the switch to dutasteride. I am seeing some loss of the effect, but I know that could be because maybe the pharmacy's having it filled by different providers, wherever they're getting their generics, so that could have something to play into it. So I was wondering if you think I should talk to my doctor about switching to dutasteride. And I know you're not a doctor, so you can't probably say, but or should you just maybe go to name brand of finasteride?
This is what I can say. Anytime you make a switch, you could have an issue. And it does make sense to maybe ask your pharmacy if they have switched their supplier in the last few months or whenever you start to notice a change. And if they did, then you can ask what the generic was that you were on for so long. And you might you might try to get your hands on that particular brand of generic, which you can find. You can just call pharmacies.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. Okay. I like that advice. Thank you.
Yeah. And as far as getting on dutasteride, that's a choice. That's a decision you have to make between you and your doctor. I would try to stick with finasteride as long as possible and see if...
Could I ask why you've never been on dutasteride? 'Cause I've been following your show for a while, and I'm just curious because I know you've been a long-time user of name brand Propecia, and in some cases dutasteride is seen as more effective.
Yeah. To me, that's kind of like Joe said, it's almost like the nuclear option, which it's not as bad. It's not like taking Accutane. But, to me, I like to have that in my arsenal, and I don't need it at this point. Even though I have lost ground over the years, I have to use more paint on the back of my head. But, I have kind of changed my dosing and played with that a little bit as far as taking my ProScar. And I kind of just have that in my back pocket just in case.
No problem. And is there a difference between the 1% Nizoral? I'm sorry, I know I'm saying it wrong.
It's all right.
Nizoral shampoo and the 2% Nizoral, 2% and the 1%.
There is a difference. The difference is 2% is double the potency of the 1%. And for some people, they need the 2%. Don't look at me, Joe. This guy asked me a question.
I was waiting for as if it was a revelation. It's like, is there a difference between 1% and 2%? Yes, one is twice that of the other. That's what I was waiting for you to say.
I guess that's basically...
I did.
That makes sense. That's a stupid question, but I didn't think
it does. It does. It is a legitimate question, but I was expecting him to give you a not legitimate answer.
It's a very legitimate question. And you know what? As far as you're concerned, on a personal level, if you think that upping your, to getting a prescription for 2%, you can talk to your doctor about that. But it does seem like the first step that I would take if it were me is to see if there are any changes made to my medication.
Okay, and one more thing I wanted to add is I did get issued a new doctor, not by choice, and she's fairly younger, and she sees my charts, and she's like, "How long have you been on you're on finasteride?" She's like, "Have you thought about switching to Rogaine?" And I was just thinking to myself, like, no, because I was like, why would you want me to switch to Rogaine after 5 years? And she's like, I don't have any visible hair loss, it's just thinning, but she's like, you should maybe get off that and just use Rogaine completely. And I was just thinking to myself, like, I don't want to tell her how to do her job, but I didn't want to just...
You can tell her, listen, let me tell you something. These guys work for you. That's it. Not every doctor knows exactly what the fuck is going on, and sometimes you have to educate them. It makes you feel better to say, or just the way I would respond is, listen, I will take that under advisement, doc.
That's what I said, pretty much.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that I found you guys, because it's like, imagine if I did have listened to her, you know, it could have been drastic. So.
And is she your internist?
She's a primary doctor.
Primary doctor, yeah.
She's like, yeah.
How,
I don't know. She just put that. She just made that comment. And I was thinking to myself, like,
how old is she?
You know, I couldn't. Maybe early 40s. She's not. You know, I've never seen her before until one time, like a few weeks ago, and her prescription refill, and she said that, and I was taken back a little bit by that.
Yeah, well, you know, I've had that myself. So listen, it is what it is. You know, there is this stigma that's been created by, you know, the media, and unfortunately by a lot of ambulance chasers, and a relatively small group of people who essentially, you know, they drew the short straw, which sucks. But it happens with every medication. Every medication has people who took it, and they're fucked up by it. That's it. You're not. All right, man?
Yep.
All right.
It was interference. I appreciate everything you guys do. I've told multiple people about your broadcast that are going through similar things, and thank you.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot. Good luck. Let us know what you choose to do.
You too.
Take care. Bye-bye. Phone number is 888-659-3727. It's amazing to me, you know. You walk into a room, this person with a white coat, they get to see you naked, and then they get to essentially make decisions for you or try to impart. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing if they really think it's in your best interest, but I'll tell you a story. I mean, I had a physician who was pretty adamant about a couple of things. I want patient autonomy. I want to make decisions for myself. To tell me that I shouldn't be doing something that you know nothing about. And to make a long story short, now this person has done an about face about this particular situation. Total about face. It's nothing to do with ProScar.
Really?
Yeah. Like, maybe you weren't so dumb after all, Spence. As he gets into his walker. As he gets into his walker. Anyway, guys, the phone number is 888-659-3727. And I've made plenty of mistakes. Trust me. I'm dealing with a whole bunch of shit. 888-659-3727. Oh, okay. Fuck it. Listen, last week lines were lit from here to fucking San Diego.
Because I'm Morty.
I think maybe. Some guy just asked, he's like, who's that dude on the left with Spencer?
Good night.
Oh, boy, guys. Well, anyway, listen, like I say, it's a fucking call-in show. And I'm not going to sit here and vamp, which I could. I could talk about a bunch of stuff that's going on in the industry. I could talk about all the bullshit. Like, here's one. For whatever reason, the media, everyone is all over the last few months oral minoxidil, which is prescribed off-label for hair loss.
Mm-hmm.
Media is all over
it. Has been
it.
for years.
Yeah, all over it. And not one person in the media In fact, when I brought it up, I decided not to follow through with this article. Not one person in the media is like, wait a second, let's put the brakes on this shit. This is not FDA approved for this indication. Why are you prescribing this? But just a couple of months ago, that was the talk of the town. Talk of the town for other medications, that they're not FDA approved. And I think what the media and what the general population doesn't understand is the vast majority, believe it or not, of medication prescribed in dermatology and hair loss and for other purposes are all medications that are prescribed off-label, that were only approved for other indications.
Yep.
Women are prescribed birth control like fucking candy to help with their menstrual cycle, to treat their hair loss, to potentially young people to potentially help with acne issues.
Yep.
Hormonal birth control that has some of them that have black box warnings. No one says fucking boo. Prescribe something to save your life, it's a problem. But it's just I see these things. It's just fucking it amazes me.
It is amazing, and but it's par for the course, man. That's the way it works. You know, what are you going to do?
Well, that's funny. The guy in the chat, Glaze Frotz, that's a funny name, says his doctor said the same. He switched to Rogaine. Let me tell you a little thing about little something about Rogaine. Rogaine sucks, in my view. Now, there are other topical minoxidil products that may not be as abrasive, have been shown. They all have been shown to stop the progression of hair loss in some people. But for the long term, in my view, Rogaine is nothing but a Band-Aid. I'm not a doctor, but I've been doing this for a very long time, and I have had access to and have been privy to not only thousands of people who've used it, but to physicians who prescribe these medications, or now you don't need a prescription for Rogaine, but have patients on these medications for decades. And they all say the same thing. Rogaine is really a last resort.
I think it is, because you got more of a commitment on top of it. Twice a day, usually.
Fucking Mr. Rolandis. There you go.
That's why I like the oral minoxidil route. It's generally more effective, it seems, depending on the dosage, and it's once a day.
Mr. Rolandis chiming in with his success with Rogaine.
Well, Mr. Rolandis knows what the hell he's doing.
Well, first of all, I got to tell you, the guy's hair looks amazing. So
it does.
I bow down to that motherfucker because his hair transplant, his hair in general is fucking amazing. This guy was a full-blown Norwood, young guy, never coming back. That was it. He was fucking done. And now he's like a hair model.
Congratulations, Mr. Rolandis.
It's great, actually.
We're proud of you. We're happy for you.
No, but I look at his hair, I'm just like, geez. Well, first of all, his hair quality is it was just perfect. Fucking perfect. It was the perfect storm to have the transplant that he's had. And when I look at him, I'm just like, I'm a little envious as far as the crown because I got to paint my hair still. He's old enough to be my grandchild, but I'm like,
I don't think so. He's not that young.
Oh, I thought he was.
You're not that old.
Oh, I feel it. But it's impressive, man. It's fucking impressive. I have to say that there's no other, besides like guys like you and Specs, there's very few people on YouTube. There may be 3 that can show results like that.
They have a huge transformation, yeah.
That have a transformation like that.
Yeah.
And the other guys that are on YouTube, sadly, their transformation is not that great. There's a transformation, They're transformed for sure.
Definitely transformed.
Yeah. But not like you or Mr. Rolandis or Spencer Stevenson.
OM in the chat room asks if Spencer's like 45, right?
Yeah.
OM wins the internet for the day.
That's right. You won the internet. 45 is a good age, man. I remember 45.
And Mike Pedroza with the correction.
Unbelievable. And V, 67.
Here it goes. Here it goes. They're piling on.
It's all right.
All right. We got any calls?
No, we're going to call it a night. Guys, thank you so much for not calling in because I'm calling it a night. The websites are if you're watching this on Joe's page, they're in the description. Check it out. You can check us out we are now uploading again. I did it last week to all the different places you can listen to a podcast. So you can hear us on iTunes, iHeartRadio. You can hear us on Spotify. You can hear us on Apple, whatever the fuck that is. What is that, Joe? iTunes.
iTunes?
Yeah. So check us out. And if you're listening to us on iTunes or Spotify or on iHeartRadio, you can check us out and watch us live by going to youtube.com/hair transplant mentor. Spit on my mic. That's youtube.com/hair transplant mentor. Subscribe to the broadcast. And guys who are watching right now, like the fucking show already. Just hit that thumbs up button. It's not a big deal. It takes no time. No time at all.
You can do it. You can do it.
All right, people. Until next time, be strong. God bless. And thank you so much for listening. Have a good night.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for any inconvenience you may have been put to prior to the programme. And I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if you could now leave by the exits at the rear, that'd be splendid. Thank you.